Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello there, my name's Kaz Aston and I'm talking to you from London in the United Kingdom, which is a little bit of a journey away from America. The United States of America, should I say. But we're good friends and we always try to be close to you, should I say, across the pond. I think they use that expression a lot. But my name's Kaz Aston. I've had MS for over 30 years and I'm going to sort of cover some of shows with you and share some information that I think might be useful for you. As I said, one of my areas that I want to cover is MS and relationships. I still haven't managed to sort that one out myself, but I keep trying. And obviously that's important when we look at ways to move forward with our social life. But as I said, MS and relationships, how is that working for you? I've got a lot of experience and things aren't working as well for me in certain respects, some people might say, because I'm not happily married. But at the same time, I'm also having lots of fun with relationships and I can't say it's all been bad. But it's one of those things that I think is always good to talk about and to share those experiences, you know. How do you tell someone that you're dating that you've got MS? How do you drop that one into the conversation? It's a bit of a big one, I think. But at the same time, you know, it could be worse. It's not as if you're going to die, possibly. You know, most people with MS leave a normal, healthy life and don't have any problems with life expectancy. You know, as I always say, my MS won't kill me. It'll be something related to that. So, you know, that's quite important to keep your mind focused on sometimes, because it was always an anxiety, you know, if you're meeting someone or dating someone. How's your relationship going to be affected by having MS? How are you going to talk about that? Maybe you're really, really, really tired and actually sex is just not an option for you right now. Or maybe your boyfriend treats you or your girlfriend treats you differently because they're worried about you with your MS. I mean, these are things that we want to talk about and to be able to share with our listeners. So please get in touch with us. And please, you know, share some personal sentiments or some personal experiences that actually you think you've had a good experience with, possibly, and you feel it's worth sharing. I mean, I think, you know, as I always say on social media, I'm very much into Twitter and very much into Facebook and using all of those different social media platforms for good communication. And, you know, I think that's very important to do that. And I think it's good to be able to use the technology that we've got today, you know, and to share and, you know, to look at different ways of sharing. It might be that you record a message. It might be that you send a film. It might be that you want to read something or you want a link sent to you. As I said, everyone's got a different way of dealing with that sort of information. And I think that's a journey that you're probably going to go on with your MS that might change. Sometimes I want to talk about my MS. Sometimes I want to share. Other times I just want to get on with my life. So, you know, I don't want to talk about it. And sometimes I just need answers. And I think that takes me into a very nice part about my philosophy about getting the right information, sharing information. And actually, I like to ask an expert, you know, if I don't know the answer to something or I can't work out how to do something, or I just want to know if it's a realistic opportunity for me, I do ask an expert. I do ask my MS team. I will ask them, particularly closely with the MS nurses, because they want to know more about lifestyle. They want to know perhaps, what's going on in your life that you haven't talked about, that your MS is affecting you. So being able to ask somebody like an MS nurse or an MS consultant is really, really important, because that way then you can ask questions that might be affecting your life, that you might be worrying about, which ultimately can lead to stress, and stress is not good for anyone. And I found it certainly not good for me with my MS, and I think that's important, trying to get the balance right. As my consultant always says to me, how's it going? And I say, yep, I'm trying to get the balance right, because I think that's a big part of MS management, really, is actually looking at your MS, looking at your health, looking at the rest of your life, looking at what you want to do with your life, and actually making sure that you do that. Sometimes we don't have any time for ourselves, do we? We might be talking to people about various things, but not about what we need or what we want to do. So I think sometimes having an opportunity to talk to an expert is really invaluable. Having a chance to actually say, well, yeah, my MS is okay, but I've got this little symptom which is really causing me problems. It could be something that you suffering with your sex life. Sometimes they say research indicates that sex can be affected by MS, and perhaps you might need to use lubricants or other things to have a really good sex life. So, I think that's important. Asking an expert, what is an expert? That's always a very controversial question, isn't it? But I do think that by being able to talk to someone that's got some good knowledge, that maybe is trained, that maybe is a professor, there's all sorts of different levels, but also might be someone that's actually really good at what they do with mobility or with exercise, physical, physiotherapists. It might be something that they can give you some top tips that actually you can manage a problem that you're experiencing better. So I do think that that's really an important part of your MS journey, is to feel that you've got a team, or feel that you've got support. You may not have a team, but you might have a really supportive GP. That's what we have in the UK, general practitioner, that we can go and see. Or you might have a regular doctor that you go and see about your MS. So all of our journeys, all of our experiences are going to be different. I tend to find that, having worked with a World Steering Group for MS, which actually brings together a whole load of different people, patients included, people that work in MS charities, people that might actually have some useful information that they've developed along the way. So actually, I found that meeting with the World Steering Group for MS with fellow patients with MS, I've shared some experiences that I never really thought about, actually, because we're trying to get information right for patients and ways of delivering that. So for me, it was a big thing about, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give up my time. I want to get the latest expert information. I want to get what the world, top people are thinking about MS management, MS research. We always talk about MS treatment, but also research is a big part of MS management and treatment, because that's where hopefully they're going to get a cure for MS rather soon. I always say they will before I die. So, look at medical research, look at how fast it's moving. You really have got to take all that on board. And of course, there are some synergies across, health diagnoses that are similar, that are neurological conditions that maybe might even display as MS, and when you're going through that diagnosis period, it's quite difficult. So actually being able to have a person that you can ask about MS problems, have an MS team, is really good. I've found that it's a way that if you feel that you're developing symptoms that are new, or perhaps you've got something difficult going on that's causing you to develop a new symptom, maybe you've got pins and needles or some balance issues, maybe if you're a bit too tired, I find that your balance isn't as great. But as I said, you've got to manage these things, and I think sometimes as well, keep a record of them, keep some notes on certain things that might happen to you. Could be you're getting extra pain. Sometimes, actually keeping a record of that helps a medical practitioner to work out what might be the best treatment for you. What could help with, for example, looking at alternative treatments. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a painkiller or a tablet or a drug that you inject into your body. It could be a lifestyle change. It could be something that, you know, that you're actually doing or not doing that could make a big difference. I find that sometimes my balance is affected if I'm tired. So it may be that actually I shouldn't push my balance when I know I'm going to have a long day doing something. So it's kind of like living with your experiences, and also having an opportunity to share those, I think, is really important. Talking to other people, you know, sharing, I think, you know, being a clinical person by background, you know, sharing best practice, sharing things that are really going to help my life as much as possible. I mean, it's quite interesting actually when you talk to other people with MS, how they manage their work or how they manage their kids, or they tend to have their own personal strategies. You know, I've talked earlier about the fact that I've had several and I keep changing them and I keep modifying them, and sometimes they're different because of the time of year and I can't cope with the cold. You know, I mean, that's a big thing to think about. Temperature does affect MS for a lot of people. So, for example, you're planning a holiday, you know, you've got to think about taking the right sort of clothing to make sure that you're warm enough, you know, and that you've got enough to last you over the holiday period. I mean, I must be honest, I find sometimes I really struggle with the cold. Even more so since I've lost a few extra pounds that I shouldn't have been carrying. But, you know, that's a big thing that I find is really difficult for me, is the cold and the temperature. So, you know, I've asked my MS doctor, you know, about this. I've shared this with MS experts to see what they're saying. And, you know, yeah, a lot of people do suffer with the cold. A lot of people with neurological symptoms do find the weather temperatures really challenging. So you're not on your own. You know, I mean, that's one thing that I think is good about sharing information, is knowing that you're going through things, that you're having various things in your life. But at the same time, you know, you're not just the only person that's doing this. You know, we know that there's a lot of people out there living with MS. It varies from country to country, or how near you are to the equator. But as I said, that doesn't really matter, does it? When you're living in your world, you've just got to think about sometimes yourself. You've got to think about managing your own needs. You can't look at managing everybody's needs, can we? You know, I mean, I think that's important, to look at best ways of managing your MS, best ways of looking for help. You know, sometimes you waste a lot of time, don't you, trying to find the right department or the right people to talk to. So I think establishing who to contact is really very, very important, because then you know where you can go. You know where you can go to quicker rather than having to go and try and find people. It might be that your MS nurse, if you've got one, will recommend somebody that's going to help you. Everyone's stories is going to be different here, isn't it? So it could be that actually your MS nurse can introduce you to a group of people or a social activity for people, or it might even be something that you can read or you can watch on a film online. You know, there's loads of ways of learning. And I think that's really, really important. You know, I mean, I wrote the MS Clear Guide to help people understand, what is multiple sclerosis? What does it mean for people? Who does it affect? How many people have MS? You know, where does it come from? What's the history? I mean, I remember in the Clear Guide writing that question. What is the history? What is MS all about? Because, you know, some people would say it's a relatively new condition. It hasn't been around that many years. Some people would say differently to that. You know, we've all got different experiences. And that's what's nice, as I said to you a moment ago, about working with a world steering group, because everybody's adding to the mix their experiences, their expert knowledge, their latest research outcomes, you know, so they're actually sharing information that could be really very, very important for people's lives, to actually get the balance right, to get their symptoms managed in the best way, because new symptom management techniques do come out quite regularly. And that's why I think, you know, when I was writing the Clear Guide, I wanted to talk about questions that I was asked, you know, or people wanted to know about, or I wanted to know about. So this was a reflection of that. It was actually research based. It was actually, these are the questions that people have asked me about. These are the things that I spend a lot of time talking about to MS groups around the world. I mean, I meet with lots of people, I share lots of information, and I think that's quite reassuring as well if you've got MS, because you think people are doing stuff to help you. People are working out there, and I think this collaboration side of life is very, very important because, we've all got different skills, haven't we? And also as well, sometimes you get to find out about the very latest, what's just come out in the way of research, what's just come out in the way of new techniques for management of symptoms or management of problems that you suffer with your MS. I think it's important, and as I said, asking those questions, and that's what people ask me. They asked me lots of questions over the years, and I recorded them. I put them together in a way with the MS Clear Guide that people could understand about MS quickly, that people could ask questions if they needed to based on the information. Or as I always say to people, people can go out and find out more information on a subject, because what you want to know about it sometimes in your MS is different to others, isn't it? In life, we look at that. So we have to get that right, because at the end of the day, if we've got options that we can go to when we want to know more about our MS symptoms, if we've got an MS team, if we've got a doctor that's really very, very good, or if we've got a social worker. I mean, social care plays a big part in the UK of MS management. We have lots of social care teams that work collaboratively with healthcare teams, because health and social care needs are deemed differently in the UK. We have systems that actually support people to manage at home, to actually get their shopping if they can't go out and get it, to actually have a wash in the morning, to actually get to bed at night, to make sure that you have a meal 3 times a day. Everybody's got different care needs, haven't they, or social needs. So we actually look at building those and working together with those with health and social care in the UK. Perhaps maybe you might want to share some information or some experiences on these topics, because that's what the radio station MS&Me is doing. We're collecting information, we're getting research from experts, we're actually sharing some of the top world thinkers' thoughts and work on this. So, this is important to actually access and to find out about if you've got MS. And a lot of this information is generated by MS charities, so it's free. It's online. There's a lot of information online. Sometimes it isn't correct about MS, and you've got to be a bit careful and a bit savvy, and you've got to make sure that what you're reading is correct if you can. When you look at research papers, you look at the dates, you look at where it's published, you look at the co-authors, you look at people who have contributed towards that, so you can get an idea of actually if it's actually valid, it's up to date. Research is changing all the time, so if something's 25 years old, is that going to be the best option for you? I always ask that question, is it current? Because current thinking can really, really be different to what was thought about maybe 2 or 3 years ago on. In the MS landscape of treatment, it's changed. We used to talk about different treatments that were the best that they were going to be, and now then there's an IV option. I went from my MS journey with over 10 years of having an intramuscular injection for my MS. Giving myself an injection once a week, or getting someone else to give me an injection if I wanted to give my legs, because it had to go into a muscle, a bit of a rest. So, you've got to actually counter that as well into your living with MS, haven't you? You've got to think, well, actually, perhaps if you're on an MS treatment that you have to inject it yourself, that you want to think with your social network, or maybe you need, if you're not feeling very well, you need some help from your community team. You might have a community MS district kind of coverage, you might have an MS nurse, you might have an MS online link, you might have a pharmaceutical company that provides a nurse or provides information. There's so many different ways nowadays that you can actually get information, particularly around healthcare subjects. Or it might be that you're following up a hashtag that you saw on TV. I mean, the power of the hashtag is something that I'm always jumping up and down on. I sometimes have taught on social media techniques, the way that we can share in business, but also the way that we can get information out there to millions of people in the right way as fast as possible. So we might well then use social media networks. So we might be looking at a hashtag. We talk about hashtags quite a lot because that's how things can go viral, or they can trend, as they say on Twitter. With so many people sharing that information. For me, it's so many people learning about it, and so many people getting an opportunity to learn about information is the best way. But if you're sharing a hashtag with the campaign that you're working on for your possibly your charity event, people retweeting that hashtag is very, very helpful, because the more people that are talking about it, the more interest it generates, and the more people want to know about the subject, and perhaps maybe, the more that they want to ask people that they haven't before, or they've never thought about it in that way. Sometimes we think we've got a good knowledge of something until we actually start to learn about it, until we actually think, that's quite a lot of subject, that's quite a lot of things. And one of the things that I always talk about as well is two-way talking. So when you go and see your MS team, you contribute. Maybe you need to take a list. Sometimes over the years I've done that because I've got so many questions that I've thought about since I last saw my MS team. So many things that I think, wow, what is the answer to that? What is the best thinking on that subject? How can I get help? Do I have to pay for this treatment? Is it free? Is there a charity? And so this two-way talking concept is really good, because sometimes we just sit there because we're so scared about what's happening with our health or our MS, or maybe we haven't even been diagnosed firmly, because diagnosing MS is difficult as well. You do separate situations where someone can say, well, you've had two separate incidents where you've had possible demyelination in your nervous system. We know that MS affects your central nervous system. So, there's going to be some evidence of that. So also, when you're having MS treatment or MS tests, adding to the mix, adding some extra information for the MS team to think about when they're trying to make the best suggestions about your treatment, or they're trying to make the best observations in looking at a way forward to manage your MS. So having that, as I said, two-way talking is very important. Make sure that you make the best of any time that you have with your MS specialist, MS doctor, MS nurse. Occupational therapists we have in the UK. We've got lots of different names sometimes. It's like when you have your toenails cut, people used to say chiropodist, now they say podiatrist. But all of these people, again, we're talking about the different therapists. Therapists play a big part in MS management. They might be giving you actually management for balance, or ways that you can actually stand up for longer, or ways that you can sleep less painlessly, ways that you can strengthen, or exercises that you can do to help you with your balance and your mobility. Looking at different things is really, really very important. And I think sometimes we've got to look every angle that we can, so we can make sure and feel confident in our mind that we've explored opportunities that possibly could help. But also we keep a record of them. Sometimes we forget things. I know as I'm getting a bit older, I forget things, and you've got to think about that one. So I urge people to keep a note. Some people call it an MS diary. Some people call it a personal diary. Some people just add it in their own. But I do that, actually. I add it into my own personal diary if there's something on a certain day, because then you can manage the time. A doctor might talk about your MS trajectory, how MS has affected you over several years. So everyone's got a different way of dealing with measuring, wanting to know results and information. But the more information you've got, the better. And the more information you can share with the people looking after you, the better. So as I said, really take that opportunity to get the best out of any consultations that you have. But also as well, make notes. God, you can't remember everything, We can't remember everything on top of getting through life and living is very, very busy and very, very engaging. So, cut yourself some slack. Keep a record, keep a diary, keep whatever you might need, something to keep some records of how you're feeling, so you can see. Say if for example, you're trying a new medication, is it helping? Well, you can actually write some notes about it. At that time, I didn't think it was, or I needed to take more pain control, or I felt sick with it, or I wanted to know more. So I think all of this stuff is so very important when you're trying to actually manage your MS and you're trying to look at these things. So this is why my show is going to be about sharing. It's going to be about having an opportunity to get in touch with the radio station and talk, let us find out and see if we can get some more information for you. But as I said, I want us to engage in some two-way dialogue, get in touch, email, share. You might have something that you feel other people need to know about, and I think that is so very important. So make sure that you actually share that. And, you know, nobody's going to judge you. No one is going to say, well, that's wrong. You know, what is wrong and what's right? So feel that you can get in touch with me, Kaz Aston, on this radio show. Feel that you can send me your emails or your questions or your experiences that you might have had along your journey of having MS. And look at ways you can do that. Thank you. Speak to you soon. Take care.